everybody, and welcome back to the Hilltop Pillbox here in Abbotsford, British Columbia, Canada, and we're reaching way back to 1986. And this is actually my copy of the game I bought in 1989. I bought it the same week that I bought Shogun and my Axis and Allies, my first Axis and Allies copy. It was in September of 89. And each of them were 50 bucks. So, Canadian. So about 30 bucks, I think, US, you could pick them up for at the time. If you're not familiar with this, Red Dawn, essentially, and if you're not familiar with Red Dawn, well, America stands alone while they get attacked by all of the freedom-hating empires of the world. So on the West Coast, we have the Asian People's Alliance coming in. And here we have, where'd they go? The Central American Federation. And then, of course, we have our good old Euro-Socialist Pact. Now, America has 60 units on the board to start. And each of the invaders has 60 units that they're going to be bringing in. Okay? And they're going to be bringing them in over a number of waves, and they can bring in whatever they want. But to start off with, they bring in a third of what they've got. Now, the units are all the same. And they all shoot the same, they all do the same sort of shtick, so that makes it pretty simple. The Americans also have partisans. Wolverines! Partisans are going to be springing up. We'll show you how that works. And there's also lasers. Yes, the lasers that the Americans have will be springing up. This styrofoam tray holds the dice. I'll show you that in a second, why there's different dice. And then these three here are the graveyards for each of the nations, because once they lose something, it's gone. There is no economy in this game. Everything is just put it on the board, roll some dice, and stuff dies, you take it off. All right. Now, the reason there's different colored dice is because each of the units do different things. And these are really excellent little charts here, and makes it quite easy to understand what's going on. But they've got foot, mech, and air units, and then they roll different types of dice, but they all have to get the same numbers. So in column 1, if you're attacking into the city and mountains without having one of each, right? So without having foot, mech, and air in the battle, you have to roll a 6 or better to destroy the target, and 1 will disengage the attacker, but a defender retreats. Okay, that's if the defense rolls a 1, by the way, not the attacker. And then for column 2, all of the other ones. So if you're not attacking a city or a mountain territory, you just need a 5 or better to destroy your target. And there's a choice, right, of what you get to choose, what you get to kill, but it is in an order. So foot units, as you can see, the infantry and partisans, the first thing they do, if they get a hit, they have to take another foot unit. So essentially infantry. But if there's no infantry, well, now they can take a mech. Well, if there's no mech, now they can kill air, which is pretty cool. You'll also see the partisans have a 6 and an 8-sided dice, 6 in attack and 8 on defense. Wolverines. And pretty simple gameplay. Action sequence just repeats itself for everybody. It's all the same, except the Americans do get fire lasers, and they also get their reinforcements, and the reinforcements happen in a different way. And also there's a supply check. So essentially, if an invader takes this territory, but at the end of its turn they can't trace a path back to the landing zone somehow, they get removed from the game. They're just taken right off the map, and that's it, they're destroyed. So what you see is what you got, though. This is all the invaders get. They get their 60 units that are going to be coming on, and that's it. All done. No redos, no do-overs, no resurrections, no repairs, no healings, nothing like that. Gone and gone. The Americans, on the other hand, are going to get stronger and stronger. And they get stronger by the use of these cards. So the cards come out, and oh, that's a good one. Detroit Automotive Industry retools for defense. So you would take 3 tanks and put them into Detroit. Now, there is a 5-unit limit per territory. 5 units per territory. The only time that's different is when you bring in bombers. They can overload a territory, so you can actually attack a place with more. Okay, but 5 units coming in, And the problem is, if America gets this one, and you can see, this is America's trade. They have no backup or anything. So if they don't lose a tank in the first round, or 3 tanks, this card is kind of a waste, and it just goes away. Now, if you get through the deck and the invaders are actually still alive, then you would reshuffle and keep drawing. See, it might come up again. Now, the reason America would want to go on the offensive, even though it might cost them some units, is they get an extra card for every city they take back during the game. And so if you look up here, this is a strategy I use. Sometimes works, sometimes fails. Is Washington, D.C. tends to get taken on the first round. It's kind of a no-brainer. It's going to happen. So I put a helicopter in there, because if he gets a hit, he can actually likely kill a bomber. And again, there's only 6 that the Euro Socialist Pact has, and so that'll be gone. And there's also, you can see there's a mobile infantry, an infantry, and 2 helicopters and some bombers, and they're all within range to come and try to take back Washington, D.C., and if they do, they will have that extra card, which will give them more reinforcements. Now, sometimes the reinforcements don't actually put anything new on. Sometimes it's something that allows you to do this. You can destroy 1 invading unit in 2 different enemy-occupied USA cities, right? So you don't get anything, but you can go kill a couple units. And if it doesn't specify, it can be anything. So you can kill bombers. That's a lot of fun. At the beginning of the American turn, they also will choose a city to plant a laser in. And Detroit or Milwaukee are typically 2 of the ones that you start with. They're the toughest ones for the enemy to get to. And then you just get to roll your D10 and hopefully get a 5 or better for the lasers. And then you just simply target. Okay. So the way you target is you just grab. These are tough to get out of here now. You grab and you say, oh, okay, I'm going to Zorch. You can shoot into invasion zones. You can shoot into territory. You just can't shoot 2 lasers into the same one. That's not allowed. All right. So when I play the invaders, I try to group my bombers together by the end, because you don't want to be losing your bombers. They're very handy. And as every turn goes on, you get more and more lasers. Now, what happens if, let's say, they put a laser in Washington and Washington gets taken? You just remove the laser, because the invaders don't have the technical wherewithal to run these lasers. Now, looking at these, I got these from Historical Board Gaming. The original ones are just the little cardboard ones. So I went and bought some of these. Same with these tokens here. They are far nicer, far easier to pick up than these cardboard ones. Right? They just got more staying power, and they all have battle written on the other side, of course. Right? So you denote your battle, and then you go in and fight the battle. If you win the battle and you have guys left over, then of course you flip it over and you take the territory. And the last note, well, 2 notes I'll say here. The first one is that these 3 are all trying to destroy the US, but if you play a multiplayer game, like you have 4 players and each one takes an invader, then you also have these different things. This is an oil resource, agricultural resource, and a mineral resource. These are the different symbols that you can see there. All right? And those are each worth 3 points, and cities are worth 5 or 10 points, and you try to, as the invader, essentially beat the other guys. The last thing I'll mention is that this game, when I've played it, and I've played this for a long time. I haven't played it for a long time, but I've probably played, I would say, at least 50 to 70 games of this, and I think America has lost about 5. Definitely slanted towards America, and just these cards are devastating. When they come up at the right time, you're dropping partisans behind enemy lines, you're cutting them off. Yeah, and the invaders just run out of gas in most of the games. Sometimes, though, they do win. I have had them win. I have won with them, and I have lost fighting them. So it's not a for sure thing. But let me know in the comments below if being in the or playing Fortress America, if you're finding yourself in the same situation where the Americans just tend to win Now, you say how to win. I'm glad you asked. There are 30 cities on the board, and the invaders need to hold 18 at the end of an American turn, which means America needs to only hold 13 at the end of their turn. And they tend to be able to do that. Tend to. Not every time. But they tend to get pushed back into this area here. And then they might still have Boston, right? They might still have Denver. Denver's tough to take because you got to go through mountains to get to it. And then every now and again, you're planting stuff in these things. It'll say drop some partisans in here, and then they can retake San Antonio because the invaders, come up and they're a spent force, right? All right. Well, that is everything there. We're going to get playing, and we'll let you know how round one goes, and we'll see if Red Dawn will repeat itself, or perhaps the invaders will have a bit more luck. Stay tuned. There's Calumet over there somewhere. We're going to turn that into a 2. There we go. Heading into round 2, and some pretty tense moments here in Washington. The Soviets, or the Euro Socialist Pact came in there and only had 3 units remaining. They had 1 disengaged and 1 destroyed, so they had just a man, a tank, and a mech. And the tank was disengaged, retreated down here, and the mech was destroyed. But the remainder could not do anything because the mech and actually all 3 of them got hits or disengagements. They got 1 hit, which killed a mech, and then 2 disengagements. One was the helicopter and one was a partisan. And so the remainder fired and nobody got another hit or retreat. And they were down to having to get a 6 because they didn't have any more mech, right? There was no more ground forces. So when you set up your defense with the Americans, you do want to be able to punch back quickly and punch back hard. But if you fail, you might be a little out of position. So men move very slowly in this game. They can only move 1 territory per turn, and they have to be adjacent to what they want to attack. They can't move and then attack. So, like Buddy here, he cannot attack anybody this next round because nobody will be within 1 space of him. Unless I'm stupid and I take my helicopter and fly him over there. But I'm not going to do that. In the south, Houston fell. Yeah, but San Antonio held. Yes, San Antonio held. And no hits were... only 1 hit was gotten and he held on. So good for him. And over in the west, the story is fairly typical, although San Diego could have been close because one of the infantry from LA retreated to San Diego, so there were 3 units there. But then all 4 of these units got a hit, and those 3 units killed the 2 infantry that were in here too. So they had to get 6s, and they all got 7s and 8s. So that was pretty fortuitous for the Central American Federation. And up the west coast here, we can see that the Asian People's Alliance had some good success and were able to take stuff out. The Americans lost all of this, plus another 3 guys, and because they got put back on the board, thanks to the card, and they've all moved since then. But the 2 cards that they got, they put on 9 units. So very powerful cards, and all at the right time because they were able to help out with some attacks, but, with that attack it didn't work out, but at least they're there. And here's the dead pool. So yellow lost 3, blue lost 4, and red always tends to lose more than everybody else. The laser shot hit, and that is the red bomber that you see in the styrofoam tray. All right, on to round 2. Here come the reinforcements. We're going to have 8 units over the next 5 rounds for each zone, each front coming in. East, south, and west. They'll all be coming in with 8 more units over the next 5 turns each. Should be fun. Here we go. All right, well, some disaster has struck for the Americans. start up here in the Northeast. They attempted to take back Washington, D.C., which had 1 tank and 4 infantry. They lost 3 infantry and a tank trying to take it. And, yeah, not good for them at all. And they didn't take it. As you can see, they only got 1 hit. They had 2 bombers and 5 helicopters in the final assault. They got 1 hit with a helicopter. Everything else missed. There were a bunch of 5s. I think there were 3 5s they rolled, but they needed 6s. And they didn't have combined arms anymore because this guy here was actually immobilized. So he could not take part. Now, disengaged, not immobilized. Heading down the coast here a little bit. Atlanta held. So after a nice stand in Tampa, Atlanta has held as well. And they are holding tough, likely going to fall this round. But hey, give them credit where credit is due. The South is looking to be a very tough nut to crack all of a sudden. All of those reinforcements have decided to come in and put a stand early on in the game. And we will see how that works out for them. It's always nice to hunker in cities and in the mountainous regions, but there are paths to head straight up right into the heartland here.
Filtrators came up illegal from Mexico, Cubans mostly. They managed to infiltrate the SAC bases in the Midwest, several down in Texas, and wreaked a hell of a lot of havoc, I'm here to tell you.
Now, right now, as it stands, the West, nothing really happened in the West. I guess they took Seattle, but I guess that's something. For all you people living in Seattle, I live right there. They have 4 cities now, and the Central American Federation, they have 5, and the Euro Socialist Pact only has 3 there, stuck at 2 after the first round. So there are 12, so they only need 6 more. And you can see there's 1 here, there's 1 here, there's a few up here, right? There's lots of juicy targets, but they've been able to be reinforced. So we will see if it was a smart idea for the Americans to attack. Losing 4 units like that in one attack, though, is fairly detrimental because you don't know where the cards are going to come up. Now, what I didn't do was I did not use my lasers this last turn. And I like to target air units. So we are going to have 1 target that bomber there. And we'll have another target that bomber there. And we'll roll these 1 at a time. And you need a 5 or better in order to get a hit. So we'll start with the red here. Well, that's it. So there goes the second Euro Socialist Pact bomber. And we'll see if the Central American Federation will lose theirs. 5 or better. And they got a 6. All right, so the lasers are working out for the Americans. That's a good thing. But they really, really wanted to and kind of needed to take back a city that round and just didn't have the horses to do it. So we are going to carry on and we'll see if the Americans are able to hold the line. And you may have noticed this one here and you may say, well, why didn't America attack here? Well, here's the reason. Yes, they could get a card back. It's possible. But it's right on an invasion zone. There's already a bunch of mech units here. You got air units here. And New Orleans then would be empty. And there's no guarantee they're going to take it, right? Defense shoots first and the hits are applied immediately. So if they got 2 hits, now they're rolling 3 at 6 and they have to get a 1 or a 6 to have any effect on them. So it's a better chance than not. They're just going to lose some guys and now you have 2 cities that will be taken. So it's one of those game time decisions you make. See if it pans out for them here in the end. A little gun shy after this battle up here now. that was horrific. 7 dice, 5 of which were helicopters, 2 were bombers, and they got 1 hit. Unreal. All right, on to round 3. And pretty easy sailing right now for the Asian People's Alliance. Nothing in the way till they get to Salt Lake City. See what happens there. On to round 4. A little bit of a stalemate on the Eastern Front here. The Americans had a couple of good cards here where they were able to retreat units and place some partisans. And so it was here that happened, and also in the West. We'll show you where that was. But they were able to destroy. There were 4 Russian and Soviet infantry here. Sorry, Euro Socialist Pact infantry here. And only 1 could retreat. And the other 3 were destroyed. So that was pretty good for them. Let's look at the dead pool. And as you can see, it's following the script quite nicely. Typically, red takes it on the chin, blue kind of gets beat up a little bit, and yellow has a much easier time of it. But only for now. That will change. Down here, though, Atlanta fell. Not much to be done for poor Atlanta. So now the Euro Socialist Pact has 4 cities under their control. The South did not try to attack Nolens, and Nolens is actually the South did attack Nolens, and the only thing left at the end of it was one of these mechs. They couldn't take the city, so then the Americans decided to send in some more units, really trying to fight this on the beaches. I'm not sure if that's a good idea because it is very empty back here, very empty. So be relying a lot on lasers. Lasers got 2 out of 3 hits this time. 1 Euro Socialist Pact bomber and 1 Southern bomber. So the West has remained fairly untouched so far. But Denver is becoming a bit pushed here by the South, and the West is encroaching on Salt Lake City. You can see the partisan here. He retreated this hover tank that you see on the coast and planted himself there. So he'll need to be dispatched. He rolls an 8, remember, D8 in defense. So he has a 1, 5, 6, 7, 8. So he has a better chance to hit or disengage a unit than he has of missing. So that's pretty impressive for the partisans. Now, some of you might be saying, well, that's it just, if it always ends with the Americans winning, or typically, what's the point of playing the game? And that's a good question. Now, there are these here as well. They call them balancing factors, and there's different things you can do if maybe one person's more skilled at the game, and they talk about the just doing everything. So bringing in the 8 units for 5 turns, bring in 5 units for 8 turns. So that's a way to slow down the assault. And the bombers can't fly really far. Partisans always roll red dice. They never get the white dice. And the U.S. player doesn't get a card if they take back a city. They start with lasers, or the invaders must capture, hold more or less city territory. So there are things you can do. It's a very simple game to house rule as well. But I'm just playing it out of box. Playing it out of box so you can kind of see exactly what goes on. All right, we're going to head off to turn 5. Turn 4, and see these Russians here, these Euro Socialist Pact forces can get off the beach here. They've been stalled a little bit, pushed back, and that's going to be a very tough nut to crack there with the 4 helicopters. If I send in bombers, they're probably going to die, and the Socialists only have 3 left in the game. After 3 rounds, they've lost half their bombers. So maybe just got to attack them with foot soldiers and hopefully get hits. I don't know. We'll see. But round 4 coming up. There should be 4 lasers on the end. Turn 5 is done, and we have some dire moments here on the eastern seaboard. Americans got a very fortuitous card, Eagle's Nest, so they could plant 3 partisans and a tank in any eastern mountain territory, because that was wide open, heading into Buffalo and New York and Boston. So look out, but they were able to slam the door shut. So we'll see if they can hold on the next turn. The laser shots, all 4 were directed against the Euro Socialist Pact. As you can see, they're pretty thin here. Pretty thin. They've lost a lot of stuff this game.
Step into the light.
They got 3 out of 4 on the lasers, and yeah, they are down. The one that missed, of course, was the bomber shot, so at least they've held on to that. In the south, we've got Nolens has been taken, and it was taken with 4 infantry. The helicopter made a battle zone from behind, or on the other side, and this mech made a battle zone here. So now, if you roll a 1 instead of retreating, that unit is destroyed. So that was the reason for that. Over here, we have San Antonio still held by a couple of infantry divisions. Dallas is held by a couple of infantry divisions, and they're moving on St. Louis. And as you can see, most of the American forces have coagulated in the cities. That is their only hope. If they spread out, they will get picked off. And of course, attacking a city, the attackers need to have better die rolls by 1. The Americans didn't get any units into the rear of the attackers this time, but they are holding strong. And I think Salt Lake City's probably gonna crater fairly shortly. Denver could hold on. Denver's in a pretty good spot right now. The South can only hit it with 6 units, including a bomber. So they could fly over these 2 bombers if they wanted to, but I think they've got some bigger fish to fry up here in the middle. Over here, the Euro Socialist Pact is a spent force. They really don't have what it takes to take Memphis, and they will have to gird up their loins, as it were, before heading into battle one more time. The northern part here is just a slugfest. Nothing's really happening. Nobody's strong enough to do a real great attack without losing some precious stuff that might not get replaced quickly. But as we look at the map, in whole, you can see the Americans are getting squeezed. The question is, will the invaders have enough to carry on and hold them? Right now there's 14 of the 18. They just need 4 more cities, but they need to hold them by the end of the American turn. Something I've done this turn that I haven't done in others is I've left some stuff behind in the west, because for some reason it seems as though the west is where all of a sudden these partisans pop up and start taking back cities, which are very difficult to take back once you've had all of your reinforcements placed. So we are going on to round 5 here, which means we've had 3 of our 5 reinforcements. We only have 2 left for each invader. So getting thinner, but if the Americans don't get the help they need quickly, we might actually have a rare win for the invaders. Stay tuned. All right, well, the stalemate continues, and the Americans continue to get the great cards that they need. They were able to destroy 2 units in this territory, retreat the rest, and plant those 2 guys. Well, they were able to do that, and 2 of the units they killed, bombers. So yes, the Euro Socialist Pact is down to 1 bomber. And, man, I was going to hit Philadelphia this turn. I don't want to lose bombers, and I should have done it because, well, they might have gone down in flames, but maybe would have taken Philadelphia. Able to get 1 hit because everything else got knocked out. Didn't get destroyed, but got knocked out. And so just 2 infantry attacked, and they got 1 hit. So, yeah, it's been pretty rough going here for the red team. Pretty rough going. There's a lot more in there than there is anywhere else. Blue, not so much. Not much of a fight going on there. And, of course, yellow, fairly unscathed. They did not get hit by the laser shot. And the lasers went 3 for 5 this round. Salt Lake City is no more. It is gone. And so the yellow begins its inexorable march towards the heartland of America over to the Great Lakes. And there's really nothing in the way to stop them. So the Americans may have to try to think a little bit more offensively on this side and try to take back a city, and if they can, get an extra card to get some reinforcements. All the cities here do have 5 units, except for Indianapolis. There's just 2 there. And these helicopters are now in a position to actually just hop over, take Detroit, and take Buffalo. Now they could do that, and they would destroy a laser, but they would definitely lose those 2 helicopters. And we all know about the Euro Socialist Pact's dearth of air power. So yes, you can do these cheeky moves in this game, but they'd be cut off. They wouldn't even have to be destroyed, right? The Americans wouldn't have to even fight them. They would just leave them there and they'd die on the vine. So the Euro Socialist Pact will not be doing that. It's just not worth losing a chopper. Going to make the Americans kill it. These 2 boys here, I don't know if they probably won't survive the winter, but we will find out. Turn 6 coming up. Again, looking at a wide shot here of what's going on. Fairly typical, although blue has been stalled this game. Blue has been stalled. St. Louis is probably going to get attacked this round, but they did just get 4 more units. And if we look at the cards that America has been getting, that's 6, 10, 13. This one here, they destroyed 2 things, but 13, 17, 20, 23, 27, 33 units they have placed. 33 units. And that's pretty substantial. That's over a 50% increase in what they had. A 55% increase, I think, if my math is correct, in what they had to start the game. And yeah, as much territory as these folks have taken, there's still a lot more work to do. Round 6 coming up. This is the final round of reinforcements, so what you see is what you got. And as I think, yes, all the bombers are on the field, but each side does have a couple or 3 helicopters left. Whew, it's going to be a good finish, folks. What's going to happen over here? Headed for turn 7 and some fun action here. So the Americans tried to take Washington, D.C. They had a tank, they had 4 helicopters, and a bomber, and they failed. They failed miserably, and they lost a bomber in the process. So, but Washington is very, very empty right now. As I said before, the Euro Socialist Pact is pretty much a spent force here. Not much left here to try to push themselves further inland, so they're likely going to have to call a halt to the proceedings and just hold on to what they've got, which is 1 less than they had. Miami has fallen thanks to the airlift card, which allowed Americans to move any or all units from one place to another, including cities, and as long as it was unoccupied. And there is Miami now in American hands again. And also Seattle. Seattle is in American hands. They were able to take back, or they got a card, a partisan revolt, and they took back Seattle. So they're going to get 2 extra cards. I actually forgot about Miami. 2 extra cards next turn they'll be able to use, and Seattle is not likely to fall anytime soon. That's looking pretty good there. There's no more reinforcements coming in. So Seattle might be a lost cause for the invaders, but if we look over here, we can see a wall of yellow. And the only thing between them and Milwaukee is a lone tank. I was kind of hoping for the Minneapolis card by now, but it's too late. They get 2 helicopters and 2 bombers in Minneapolis, but it hasn't come yet, and it won't be here in time because the tanks are all going to move there on first movement, and boom, attack Minneapolis and a bunch of helicopters. Kansas City fell, and Denver is well and truly surrounded by a lot of enemies here, likely to fall this round.
There's 500,000 scarecrows in Denver would give anything for one mouthful of what you got.
Memphis, I don't know if it's going to fall this round. It's a tough nut to crack, and there's really not a lot of punch left. Euro Socialist Pact has no punch left, and the blue team here could roll a lot of dice, but don't know if they got enough to get 5 kills. Remember, they're going to have to be rolling likely. Well, they'll probably have some air left, but they'll still have to roll well in order to take Memphis. And St. Louis, well, St. Louis is St. Louis. We won't know until we get there. That'll be interesting. But we can also bypass St. Louis and just head here, and threaten the interior. But with 14 cities, they need to get 5 or 4 more and hold them until the end of the American turn. And if the Americans keep getting cards that allow them to drop units in behind the lines and take over cities, well, that can be a problem. And that's why I've left a few extra troops behind in these cities. I just totally forgot about Seattle. There were 2 guys in there, but I totally forgot about it. And there was nobody in Miami. I overlooked that. So now that's just a brain fart, but there it is. All right. Which means there's 1 less infantry defending back here as well. So it's not like it was a freebie without consequence. All right, so on to round 7. No more units being put on by the bad guys. And the Americans are going to get 4 cards this next round, which should help them. And this is probably going to be the round. This will be the round that we know whether or not the invaders actually have a hope. And we'll let you know at the end of round 7 what becomes of all these nice American cities. Well, that was a close call. The invaders had 19 cities, but the Americans were able to take back, they had 20 cities, and the Americans were able to take back 3. Tampa and Atlanta. Atlanta was actually empty, and Tampa had 1 guy, so he got lasered. And that was empty, so the guy from Miami could just walk in. The attack on Washington failed again, miserably. And not too much to draw from over here, so you got to be careful too. They only got 1 hit, but they took out a tank, and there you go. But the Americans have almost cut off. If they could take Washington, everything that Red has done would be erased from the board if Red didn't punch through. So Red might have to back up just to save these supply routes, because if they don't have these supply routes at the end of their turn, everything gets removed. In the middle, a little resurgent here. Took out a yellow helicopter, and St. Louis held. St. Louis held, but Memphis did not. It was taken with some authority, but it took 2 attacks. The South first, which failed, and then the Euro Socialist Pact finished them off. St. Louis is down to 2, and there's Chicago. You see Indianapolis fell. Detroit's wide open for the taking, and there's really not much to be done there. And yeah, so there is a debate at the highest circles of power whether or not to send a couple units into Detroit. But with all this stuff here, it's less, it's not a good idea. Just not a good idea. So we're probably going to again go heavy lasers on the red and just try to completely emasculate the Euro Socialist Pact. They are way low on guys. They have 2 tanks on the board and 2 helicopters. That's it. Everything else is rolling 6s. So they're spent force, but as we know, the Asian People's Alliance has a lot of punch left. And they're not afraid to use it, folks. Over here, Seattle remains in American hands. A little bit of a counterattack by the Asian People's Alliance took care of our partisan friend, but that is all that could happen. Plus, we got that card that lets you place 1 soldier in each of the 5 sectors. So not a lot of help, unless you can plant them in a city. which he could. He's just trying to live. This guy here went into the south, put one guy into Chicago, and then in the east. And yeah, and then we had some partisans drop down. So the 4 cards really, really helped. If there wasn't 4 cards, the game might be over. And I think this is where America really starts to flex. Although it doesn't look like it, right, when you look at the board. But I think they're going to get 4 cards again next turn, and I think they're really going to flex. But we'll see, because if they do come up with a Minneapolis card, it's no good now because it's completely taken over by the enemy. All right, round 8 coming up. 17 cities are under invader control. They only need to capture 1 more and hold it. But can they get to it in time? Well, this is a rare occurrence for me playing this game. The Americans were trying to take back a couple of cities here. They have lost the game, and they have lost it in very spectacular fashion. Got a card that helped set us up here for an attack on San Francisco. We got to kill 1 unit, put the rest down there. I lasered another unit, and then we had the attack with 5 units there. Only got 1 retreat, no hit. So they retreated to LA, 1 unit remained. So they didn't get San Fran. We have a laser in Miami because it's safer than any other city right now. We did take back Detroit and took back Indianapolis. We had some tanks and whatnot churn out in Buffalo, which ended up helping us take back Indianapolis. But unfortunately, it's just not enough. They needed to take Washington here, and so they attacked Washington. They had 5 helicopters. That's all they could attack with coming into Washington. And this is what the Washington defense did. So if you don't understand, essentially that killed 3 helicopters and sent another one elsewhere. Like it just stops it from participating in the battle. So that means there's only 2 helicopters trying to kill Washington, and they can't do it because they can only each get 1 hit. So we'll roll it just for fun. Here we go. And they both missed. So Washington has been an incredibly tough nut to crack for the Americans. They've attacked it about 4 times, and every time they get their butts handed to them. So the game is going to end. Now whoops, that's in the wrong spot. The Euro Socialist Pact here only has 3 cities. You can look at this. They got beat up. They got beat up badly. Right? They lost everything. And they don't even have, I think, yeah, they got 3 cities. So they got Atlanta, they got Memphis, and they got Washington, and that is it. Unfortunately, the rest of the map except for Seattle is really under control of the invaders. So the Southern ended up getting 9, and the Western got 7. So if these were 3 different players, the South would likely have won this game, with 2nd place going to Yellow, 3rd going to the Euro Socialist Pact, and of course the Americans they're done. Now, that's the end of the game. We can't play anymore because that's the way the rules go. But they did take back 2 cities this round. So I'm just going to take a look at the 4 cards that the Americans would have gotten. And the last turn, one of the cards was that the lasers hit on a 3. So doesn't really help too terribly much. They were down to 4 shots. All right, so this is what they would get. Oh, Detroit would have given them 3 tanks. Unfortunately, on this turn, they didn't own Detroit, so they wouldn't have gotten that. This one is the Partisans. Destroy 1 invading unit in 2 different oil resource territories. So you got to find the oil resource territories, and you can destroy 1 invading unit in 2 different ones. And I don't think, actually... I don't think there is any invading units in oil resource territories. They're all empty. So, that would have been a bust. And in the Rocky Mountains, the NRA organizes a rebel training camp. So 3 partisans and a tank. Well, that would go right there, and they would try to take back Salt Lake City. That would be their job. I think I picked up 5 cards. So 1, 2, 3. So this will be the last one here. And Rocky Mountains place separately where possible. So again, we'd put 1 there. That would give us 1 more unit for the attack on Salt Lake City. And that would be pretty much all they could do. Might put a little bit of squeeze on down here and try to put a little pressure on. Maybe even go here in case the first attack fails. They might do a follow-up. But that is it, folks. That is everything. And in the last round, they did get this card as well. Wouldn't that have been nice for the Americans? 2 bombers, 2 choppers up in Minneapolis. Unfortunately, it was 1 turn too late.
Avenge me!
Avenge me! Well, I hope you've enjoyed this. Leave your thoughts below as to your thoughts on the game. How does it play when you play it? Have you ever seen it before? Maybe this is brand new. And this is the old version. They've done a reprint. I don't have it. Had some people say you should pick it up. But this one here seems to do the job well. And again, you can always tweak these numbers. You can say the invaders only need 16 or 17 instead of 18. This game went really well for the invaders, especially over here with Washington. When the Americans kept trying to take it back and just losing 3 or 4 units each time. And they only needed to take it once. If they take it once, that's huge, especially after all of the reinforcements have been placed and they have no more reinforcements coming in. So it's all in the timing, as they say, all in the timing. Thanks so much for watching, folks. And as we always say here, hug your loved ones. Thank your friends for playing with you. Thanks for watching. Really hope you enjoyed it. And may those dice be with you. Kind of like they were with the Euro Socialist Pact. Ouch.